Growing up like Country Road, for 25 years, John Denver was the face of RCA. They then dismissed him as if he were unimportant. Everyone was previously aware of his nasty temper and chainsaw outbursts thanks to his ex-wives. Despite drinking too much, he lost his pilot's license. Even after 1997, when he was no longer legally permitted to fly, he continued to ascend. He was killed by a fatal defect in the experimental aircraft. The police discovered something worse when they eventually pieced everything together. It was possible to prevent the collision. Numerous warning indicators were present, yet nobody took notice. What actually transpired that day will astound you. On December 31, 1943, John Denver was born John Deutschendorf Jr. He was born in Roswell, New Mexico, and his family enjoyed flying. Captain Henry Dutch Deutschendorf, Sr. was his well-known father. He established 3 speed records while piloting the B-58 Hustler bomber. The Air Force even inducted Dutch into their Hall of Fame because he was a hero in the military. However, life wasn't simple for little John. I had to relocate a lot as a child in the military. He never stayed in one area long enough to form true friendships because he was constantly on the go. He had hardly settled into his new residence when it came time to pack up and head out once more. This made him feel alone and as like he didn't belong anyplace. He would constantly feel as though he had no true home. When John was 11 years old and living in Tucson, Arizona, his grandmother gave him this present. It was an antique Gibson guitar manufactured more than a century ago, in 1910. For a youngster who had felt like he was traveling around a lot, the guitar became a genuine and steady item. With music, he was able to express himself in ways that words could not. He felt better when he heard its strings. In addition, he learned how to conduct and act and harmonize by joining the Tucson, Arizona Boys Chorus. He felt a sense of belonging in this well-known group that school was never able to provide him. By the time he reached high school, he was already into folk songs. Making music was more than just a good time. It gave him a better understanding of his life. Their relationship was frequently strained since his father was very strict. Dutch believed his son would excel in every endeavor. John was nicer and wanted to be a songwriter. However, they both had a deep love for flying. They were at last close after John became a pilot. Despite the danger, flying together was a way for them to connect. That risk would follow John later in life, particularly after he died in a plane crash in 1997. Nevertheless, that connection remained with him and appeared in his songs about the sky and freedom. After high school, John studied design at Texas Tech University. However, he had no real desire to sketch plans. He left school to pursue his dream of being a musician and relocated to Los Angeles. Around this time, he decided to change his last name. The state's mountains and rivers inspired him to name the city Denver after the capital of Colorado. It seemed like a fresh beginning. In 1965, he had a tremendous break. Out of 250 singers who auditioned, he was selected to be the main vocalist for the Chad Mitchell Trio. This was his first significant opportunity in the music industry. He had the opportunity to perform for different audiences across the nation, which aided in his development. He contributed to the group's 3 records during his 2 years there. He became proficient at singing on stage. He wrote his own tunes in his spare time. Touring was challenging, but John absorbed everything. His voice was returning slowly. During this period, his most well-known song was "Leaving on a Jet Plane." It was covered by Peter, Paul, and Mary in 1967 and peaked at number 1 on the Billboard charts in 1969. His words were suddenly being sung by everyone. Even though he wasn't yet a well-known single star, this triumph demonstrated the significance of his songs. When the Mitchell Trio was done, John didn't turn around. He was already climbing the pop rankings on his own. He was constantly getting hits by the early 1970s. Being a solo celebrity after being in a group was not always that simple. However, John made it appear simple. John Denver made his breakthrough in 1971 with the release of his album, Poems, Prayers, and Promises. Take Me Home, Country Roads, the album's lead single, nearly never achieved the level of fame that it now enjoys. For a while, it seemed as though the music would not work because early versions had issues with the sound. Jerry Winrobe, Denver's new CEO, had no intention of doing this. Starting in Denver, Colorado, he put a lot of effort into getting the song broadcast on radio stations. For a while after its release on April 12, 1971, it didn't do well. By August 28, it was ranked number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. After selling more than 1 million copies, it was certified a gold record that same month. Over the years, it continued to thrive. By 2017, more than one had been sold. 5 million to U.S. citizens. In 2014, West Virginia declared it their official song due to its widespread influence. Denver's sixth album, Rocky Mountain High, was published in 1972. It was his first album to reach the U.S. Top 10. It reached the 4th position on the Billboard 200. One of Denver's best-known songs, the title track peaked at number 10 on the 1973 Billboard Hot 100. Outdoor aficionados continue to adore this song, which peaked at number 29 on the year-end chart. The fact that the cover was taken near Slaughterhouse Falls in Aspen, Colorado, makes it even more unique. Rocky Mountain High was finally designated as one of Colorado's 2 official state songs in 2007. The best years for John Denver were 1974 to 75. In just 18 months, he scored 4 number 1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100. Sunshine on My Shoulders peaked at number 1 in March 1974. Annie's Song peaked at number 1 in July 1974. Thank God I'm a Country Boy peaked at number 1 in May 1975, while I'm Sorry came in at number 2 in September of the same year. These hits demonstrated his diverse skill set. One was vibrant, like Thank God I'm a Country Boy. Another was beautiful and hopeful, like Sunshine on My Shoulders. He penned Annie's Song for his wife in 10 minutes. It rose to fame as a wedding song. Denver could now be heard in millions of living rooms, seen on television, and heard on the radio. During this period, Denver also released 3 singles that all reached the top of the charts. John Denver's greatest hits sold more copies than Elvis Presley's record ever, making it RCA Records' best-selling album of all time in 1973. When Back Home Again was released in the US in 1974, it went 3 times platinum. 2 million copies of Winding were sold when it was released in 1975. Denver was unquestionably a true star, as seen by these 3 albums. By the conclusion of his career, Denver had penned over 300 songs. About 200 of them were written by him. In total, he received 4 platinum albums and 12 gold albums. Worldwide, more than 33 million units were sold. That made him one of the most well-known singer-songwriters of the 1970s. John Denver's entry into the Hollywood industry was unexpected and a huge success. Denver had never acted before, but his sincere warmth and humor won over audiences when he co-starred with comic icon George Burns in the popular 1977 film, Oh God! Based on a novel by Avery Corman, the film, which was directed by Carl Reiner, told the story of a typical store manager who was chosen by God to deliver a message. Denver played the part with ease, making it simple to believe in him. With almost $51 million made in the US alone, it was a major blockbuster. The screenplay even received an Oscar nomination. Denver's initial parts shown that he was capable of more than just singing, even though he didn't appear in the sequels. He became one of the few musicians who could go from music to acting with ease as a result. Denver also created a popular style in the 1970s. He was recognizable by his long blonde hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and embroidered Western outfits. These shirts were designed by Ann Zapp. She met Denver at an Aspen art show. Her vibrant, handmade patterns complemented his soft, grounded demeanor. Eventually, celebrities like Bonnie Raitt and Willie Nelson would also don her clothing. Denver had a warm, inviting appearance that was simple to notice. It represented the straightforward, sentimental essence of folk and country music of the time. It stood in stark contrast to other musicians' louder styles. Even if some detractors weren't convinced he could He also gained favor with individuals outside of the US. His manager, Jerry Winrobe, believed that Denver needed to communicate with people around the globe. Thus, despite skepticism, Winrobe produced several television specials for the British public. According to Winrobe, Denver would go directly to the people and not rely on the reviews to make them popular. The strategy was a huge success. Denver won over British viewers and followers throughout Europe with his warm, approachable manner and distinct voice. The specials helped Denver gain international recognition and demonstrated that television was an excellent medium for introducing fresh performers to other nations. Denver shared a close relationship with Colorado. After relocating to Aspen, he fell in love with the state's landscape and culture. In 1974, he was named the Poet Laureate of Colorado. His song, Rocky Mountain High, which was published 2 years prior, transported me to a peaceful forest and a blue mountain lake. In a way, the song became Colorado's unofficial theme. It became one of the 2 official songs of the state in 2007. Locals believe that Denver had a genuine connection to the region. His song, Take Me Home, Country Roads, was designated as one of West Virginia's state songs by the state legislature in 2014. This demonstrates how realistically his music depicted American locales. Denver was also a television star in the 1970s and 1980s. His 1975 special, An Evening with John Denver, was even recognized with a Primetime Emmy Award. Being in the same ensemble with some of the top musicians at the time was an honor. Denver appeared in numerous additional television programs, putting on shows with his pals, telling anecdotes, and singing his hits. These performances allowed people in America and around the world to enjoy his music in the comfort of their own homes. Because each performance felt genuine and intimate, he was one of the most popular entertainers of his era. John Denver was not merely a singer. In 1985, he addressed the U.S. Senate. Records deemed too risque to bear warning labels were sought after by parents. Despite his reputation for gentle tunes, Denver didn't hold back. At one point, his own song, Rocky Mountain High, was removed because someone believed it to be about drugs. It was untrue. Denver maintained composure and strength while advocating for free speech. Many people believed that he would support the warning signs, but he did not. Everything about the argument altered at that point. The music industry is still affected today. In that same year, Denver became the first American artist to tour the Soviet Union in over a decade. During the Cold War, it was stressful. There were numerous issues between the 2 nations. Denver decided to take a different approach. He performed 11 times around the USSR. It was more than just a fun excursion. It united individuals from various nations. He was embraced by people in Leningrad, Moscow, and Talon. Even people who did not speak his language could understand his message of peace. He sung about his own dreams and their troubles. He wrote a new song titled, Let Us Begin, which is about having peace rather than war. As a result of that, Denver returned to the Soviet Union following the Chernobyl accident in 1987, where he recorded the well-known live record, Live in the USSR. 92,000 individuals were forced to evacuate their houses as a result of the tragedy. Thousands of people might become ill. Denver performed during a support event in Moscow. The concert made almost $140,000 just from ticket sales. Tapes brought in even more. That night had nothing to do with politics. It was about being polite and considerate of others. In the Soviet Union, people felt as though they were being observed. Denver demonstrated that one guitarist may have a significant impact. In 1992, he traveled to China with his songs. After years of isolation, he attracted the attention of the Chinese. Songs like Country Roads were already being sung in schools and parks. The Chinese government asked him to travel to a number of locations. They even consented to broadcast one of his events to almost 2 billion people. Some suggested that the Temple of Heaven or the Forbidden City should be the setting for the event. He received hero-like greetings from young Chinese folks. Denver had been visited by leaders such as Deng Xiaoping years before during a trip to Washington, D.C., which had a significant influence. During his trip, Denver became one of the most popular Western singers in China. As his career progressed, Denver's passion in assisting others grew. He released an album of his greatest hits in the 1990s called Homegrown, and every penny of the record sales was donated to the homeless. Around this period, he also assisted in launching the World Hunger Project. For that group, he received the Presidential World Without Hunger Award. Denver supported environmental initiatives as well. He started Planted 2000 and the WinStar Foundation to plant young trees in forests. He began to value community service almost as much as songwriting. Despite this, Denver had an extremely difficult personal life. The idea of him marrying Annie Martel was merely a fantasy. Together, they adopted 2 children. In just 1 hour, Denver wrote the song Annie's Song for her. However, their issues increased along with his notoriety. Annie often lost herself in his shadow. In the early 1980s, they decided to part ways. Then there was anarchy. Denver, who is often rather composed in public, acted out in private. According to news sources, he became irate and untrustworthy. When they split up in 1982, it was really awful. One day, after Annie felled some of his treasured oak trees at their Aspen house, Denver lost it. He was carrying a hatchet. Instead of shouting, he smashed their stuff. Even their bed was broken in 2 by him. It was a sinister indication that the marriage was over. The smooth voice was so familiar that friends and onlookers were shocked to recognize it. In 1982, it was Annie who filed for divorce. The documents revealed a pattern of mistreatment that damaged Denver's standing as a clean city. Her buddies took her word for it. Even his former boss commented about his negative attitude. After their breakup, Annie avoided the spotlight, but the harm was already done. Many people who had thought favorably of Denver had second thoughts. John Denver first met Cassandra Delaney at the Seabell Townhouse in Sydney in 1985. Delaney is an actor and singer from Australia. When she was singing at the hotel bar, he was immediately attracted to her. They fell in love quite fast. They had a lavish wedding on top of a mountain near Aspen in August 1988. It was a lovely scene with close friends and family present. Many others believed it to be a story. However, there were flaws right away. Cassandra later said that she felt a lot of strain from being with a well-known man. John was older. He experienced wild mood swings and his fame followed him around. Although everything appeared perfect from the outside, tensions were already high behind closed doors. In May 1989, their daughter Jessie was born. John always thought that a childhood illness prevented him from becoming a parent. The birth of the infant was a wonder and a surprise. When Jessie was born, it sparked rumors because people thought John couldn't have children for years. They were suspected of using IVF by some. The birth of Jessie made John more defensive. He appeared less interested in Cassandra and more irritated. The tenuous equilibrium between them began to unravel. Cassandra revealed a terrible experience to Australian Women's Weekly in 1996. According to her, John had no true pals. He frightened the staff. They would weep and resign from their positions. It was a spectacle, yet most people found him to be nice. When he wasn't performing, he was irate, untrustworthy, and cruel to those closest to him. She described years of mental suffering. John sought to control her entire life after becoming enraged with her and drinking excessively. She remained silent for a while in an attempt to influence him. However, nothing was effective. The stress level was excessive. In 1991, they parted ways, and by 1993, they were officially divorced. The legal case was really difficult. For $3, John brought Cassandra to court. $3 million and informed her that she was harming his reputation. Cassandra battled for the removal of Jessie from her. John said in his book that she had ridiculed him on the other side of the valley. After the war, they were both heartbroken and enraged. After that, John was never the same. His clean reputation was tarnished in 1994 when his book, Take Me Home, was published. He claimed to have struggled with cocaine, LSD, and marijuana for a long time. His fans were horrified by what he stated. His admirers have always regarded him as a good-hearted vocalist who cherished the outdoors. The negative aspects of his life were now known to them. He also wrote about his infidelity. He claimed to have been rougher than he should have been and discussed how his violent outbursts caused his second marriage to dissolve. He had affairs with everyone, including Annie Martel, with whom he had an affair in his first marriage, which gave rise to Annie's Song. One story caught our attention. He used a chainsaw to chop their bed in half. One of the most well-known singer-songwriters in the US in the past was John Denver. In the 1970s, his gentle voice, straightforward lyrics, and acoustic style helped him reach the top of the charts and win over millions of followers. 13 of his 25 records on RCA Records were gold, and 8 were silver. RCA's best-selling album ever was his greatest hits album. However, in the mid-1980s, things began to shift. Computers and drum machines were the new thing in the 1980s. With all of the pop music that was dominated by MTV, his folk country sound didn't mesh well. In 1986, General Electric purchased RCA. After then, the business reduced expenses and concentrated on more contemporary artists. He had a history with RCA and had achieved success there, but they let him go. Denver shocked me. One World, their final album, had just been handed to him, and he was certain that he would receive another. RCA believed they might earn more money elsewhere instead. They said that because he had brought them so much wealth over the years, they had forgotten about him. He had no choice but to release his subsequent records on his own Windstar label. Even though it was severe, it demonstrated that when preferences and objectives change, even a famous person can lag behind. Denver was meanwhile dealing with other issues. He frequently flew since he loved it so much. Over the years, he accumulated over 2,700 hours of flight time and earned ratings for gliders, Learjets, and small and big aircraft. But he began to feel the effects of his domestic issues. In the 1990s, Denver was arrested twice for driving under the influence.